How are you?
I'm doing well. How are
I
you?
am doing great. I'm so excited to finally have the opportunity to speak with you.
I know it's like always a hard time to catch up with me, and then my life has just been incredibly insane.
Well, thank you so much. Well, if you're ready, I'm gonna go ahead and get into the questions so that we can go ahead and let you get back to your day. Perfect.
Yeah.
So the one thing I wanted to know is, are there any initiatives that the Afro is currently pursuing or has already launched that are geared strictly towards millennials?
So I mean, I'm a millennial, and so I obviously regularly consider content that I would be interested in particular.
Okay.
And I think an extension, and by extension, um, our content has sort of become that. Our
Okay.
managing editor up until a week ago was also a millennial.
Okay.
And so, again, like our content has become a lot fresher and delivered in a style that was not necessarily Afro style when I first got there.
Okay.
And I mean, now whether we've done like very targeted initiatives in the paper for millennials, not necessarily, but it's been very diligent just in terms of the content that we cover, and then even in the style that we write. So, for example, the editors are required to do stories pretty much daily of some sort. And again, just because life has been so crazy, we haven't had this exact style in a while, but generally it's just aggregated stories. And so, like, I'll find a piece that is very specific to DC or Prince George's County, or sometimes a national piece, it just depends. And then put like a millennial flair on it, something that I would be interested in reading if I just saw the article pop up on Twitter, and then, or on social media in general, and then using language such as like even in our titles, such as clap back and shout out, and things that resonate again with the millennial crowd, but don't scare off our loyal and sort of legendary readership that we've had, that are wiser in age, more seasoned, shall I say. Yeah, that's sort of the short answer of it all. And then the longer version of it is that, so much of what we have been able to do just because of the sheer fact that we have so many young people in leadership, and then people who are not necessarily young but understand the changing times, who are ready and willing to go with that. So that's kind of it. One of the big things, I guess, content wise, sorry, I will answer this. One of the big things that we've done, that's very specifically geared to millennials, would be something called DC Speaks and Baltimore Speaks. And I can only speak for DC. We have actually targeted primarily millennials to do DC Speaks, and so that is something that we either give a millennial an opportunity to submit their own writing or something like that about a particularly transformative experience they had while in DC, or maybe answering a question or a concern that they had through their own writing. So that's one way DC Speaks works, and that has every DC Speaks we've done this far has been a millennial.
Okay.
Or we go and send a generally younger millennial reporter to ask one question to several people, generally who are millennials, and they would answer that said question in a matter or in a way. Again, hopefully that targets millennial crowds. They're millennials answering the questions, and so an example of that would be last week. RDC Speaks was at Howard's homecoming, and so even the person who we did ask, or I wasn't there, our reporter did ask one alum who I guess would probably not even be considered a millennial, because he graduated college 15 years ago, so he's probably right over that line of millennial, but he was still young, and his answer kind of was about bridging the generations together, and everybody else he asked the question to, which was, why is Howard's homecoming still important. And everybody else we posed the question to were actual Howard students. So again, that's sort of the way that we do it. Another thing, another DC Speaks was about the rising rate of gun violence in DC, and do we think a ceasefire is something that should happen or is realistic for the city? And all of those, the people who answered the question were millennials and gave, a young person's perspective, because young people dying. Right. And so that's one way we do it. But again, just like the word millennial is so weird to me. I mean, I am one, but I mean, it definitely has a connotation of like young and it's not necessarily a positive thing always, because I think that people feel like they have to cater how they're delivering things to us in such a way, which is true. I mean, it is. We do like millennials like things packaged in a specific way, but I think sort of thinking on a broader spectrum and how we're looking at it is that millennials are the ones who are our biggest consumers. Millennials are the ones who are now starting families and becoming the entrepreneurs and CEOs. And so if we want to continue building the readership of the Afro or any publication for that matter, millennials are the only people we should be thinking about. Right. Because, and so in that sense of it, or I don't want to say the only, but are the primary group of people that we should be thinking about. And so in that sense of it, we are doing a whole lot, but we're not really. The Afro doesn't have the ability, I think, to exclude any age group from our coverage. Okay, and the last thing, content-wise, that I started and produced is a series called, oh my gosh, and it's Thursday and my brain is out of control. What is it called? The Rundown. My background is broadcast journalism, so Rundown is something that producers use of like what the news of the week is going to be. I mean, not of the week, but of whatever the broadcast is. It's the Rundown. And so I do a broadcast show called The Rundown. We've been in hiatus for about 3 weeks now. We're coming back next week. And that literally just gives snippets of some of the news of the week that's going to be featured in the paper. And then sometimes it's not stuff that's featured that I can just sort of have fun with and mention. And that's very millennial. I mean, from the graphics to how it's disseminated, which is you're used to in social media. The fact I'm doing it, again, the language that is used and sort of just, it's very conversational. It's professional and it's still, tight, succinct writing and things like that, but it has far more of a millennial flair than I think how people are accustomed to receiving news.
Okay, so now with the Afro being both digital and print, which platform do you feel provide the most traffic for your consumers?
I'm positive that I'm positive that online drives the most traffic for our consumers at this juncture. We just live in an online world. And obviously at one point, and still to this day, it's the print paper that has the legacy and what has so much weight, I think, particularly in the DMV. And so that's great, but the print product is not what drives the majority of our consumers at this point. Particularly for me, and since I've started and I've watched it change, because I started with the Afro as a freelancer in 2015 when I was in grad school. So I've really seen and been a part of this transition, again, primarily just because of my background. I can only bring to the Afro what I did, and so much of it, I think, now has become people reaching out to me simply because they've seen the Rundown or simply because they saw that I embedded a video of an interview that I did, for example, with Taraji. And in the online article, which was supposed, when I came and did the interview, it was supposed to be for a written piece, but because I've been able to do other things with the online world as opposed to just printing the story online, it's been able to drive a lot of new traffic. We have, I think, the largest of all Black, of the Black press, and meaning Black press not in the larger word sense of it, but in terms of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, we have the largest, I think, following on Facebook. And again, Facebook is not as much used by millennials, but it does steer a lot of our online traffic and our shares and things like that through Facebook make a huge difference. But yeah, I write articles sometimes solely for online because I know that that's where it's going to get the most attention and where it needs to be. So yeah, definitely our online product is what drives most of our consumers back to us. But the print product is what is our legacy and what keeps us still relevant. We have to keep the print product. I think our publisher uses the example of Jet Magazine of Jet Magazine being out of sight, out of mind. If people don't know and see Jet, even if they weren't picking it up in the grocery stores anymore, there's a reason why Jet no longer has a print product, right? But even if they weren't picking it up in the stores anymore, they were at least seeing that it still existed. They still saw once a week that little magazine was going to be out. And I think in the same way, if people don't see the print product of the Afros, they don't see us, at their churches or in their grocery stores or wherever, then they're going to not even think about the online product. So definitely the aesthetic of knowing that the print product exists also drives our consumers, and I think is really integral in ensuring that the paper as a whole remains relevant, but we get most traffic from the online product. I hope that makes sense.
It did. Actually, you through your context that you provided and your explanations, you answered a lot of the other questions I were going to ask. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time, and I do appreciate your willingness to assist in my master's project.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
All right.